If the universe had a sense of humor, it was a cruel one. Because out of all the people in this godforsaken town, the one who showed up when I was bleeding in the alley was him. I hadn't said his name in over 5 years. Not out loud. Not in my head. Not even when I cursed him in my dreams. The Alpha. My Alpha, though I'd sooner bite my own tongue than call him that. It was October in Grayford, Pennsylvania, the kind of town that still smelled like rust and damp leaves. The kind where every step you took felt like someone was watching. And I was used to hiding head down, hands in pockets, footsteps quiet. I was good at it. Until tonight. I'd been walking home from my shift at the diner, cutting through the alley behind the old hardware store, when I heard them. 2 guys, maybe 3, shadows slipping from the brick wall like oil. Words were exchanged, cheap insults, the kind they used to spit at me in high school. Only this time they wanted more than to talk. I'd learned to ignore threats. Tonight I ignored them too late. One of them shoved me hard into the wall. My head cracked against the brick, and my knees buckled. Then came the sharp heat in my ribs, once, twice, again until breathing felt like swallowing knives. I might have blacked out for a second, but when my vision cleared, they were laughing and walking away, and I was on the ground, curled in on myself. And that's when I heard Ithis' voice. Eli. It froze me colder than the October air. He crouched in front of me, his shadow blocking the flickering streetlight. He looked older than the boy I remembered, sharper around the jaw, broader in the shoulders. But his eyes were still the samey color I'd hated for years, because once, they'd been kind to me. Don't touch me, I hissed, dragging myself against the wall. But he did. His hands slid under my arm, steadying me, and I hated how warm it felt. You're hurt, he said quietly, like it was an observation and not the most obvious thing in the world. I wanted to tell him I'd rather crawl through broken glass than accept his help. But the truth was, I couldn't even stand. And when I swayed, his arm went around me before I could shove him away. That's how I ended up in his truck. The cab smelled like cedar and gasoline. I sat stiffly, eyes locked on the rain-speckled windshield. My ribs screamed every time we hit a bump, but I wouldn't let him see me wince. He didn't speak until we were halfway out of town. You still hate me, huh? I barked a bitter laugh. What do you think? His hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles pale. I think I deserve it. That made me glance at him, just once. He kept his eyes on the road, but there was something in his voice, something almost human that I didn't remember. We drove in silence after that. I told myself I was counting streetlights, not the seconds until we stopped. When we finally pulled into his driveway, I froze. The last time I'd been here, I'd been 17 and humiliated, standing on his porch with my heart in my hands, and him, Luke Bennett, looking at me like I just confessed to a crime. And maybe, in his world, I had. Let's get you inside, he said now, but his voice was gentler than I remembered. I almost refused. Almost. But the night air bit through my jacket, and my legs felt like water. So I let him guide me to the door, through the familiar creak of the floorboards, past the smell of wood smoke and something simmering on the stove. Sit, he said, nodding toward the couch. I didn't want to sit. I wanted to leave. But the room tilted when I tried to turn away, and suddenly I was lowering myself onto the worn leather cushions. He disappeared into the kitchen, came back with a first aid kit, and knelt in front of me. You don't have to, I started. Yeah, he said, cutting me off. I do. For a long time, the only sound was the quiet rip of gauze, the muted clink of metal. His hands were steady as he worked, brushing my skin only when necessary, but every touch still felt like a question I didn't want to answer. When he finally spoke again, it wasn't what I expected. They told me you left town, he said. I tried. I muttered. Didn't stick. His eyes flicked up to mine. Why? I looked away. Because not everyone can just leave and start over, Luke. He was quiet after that, and I was grateful. But I could feel the weight of what wasn't being said between us, thick as the shadows on the walls. What he didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I'd been running from more than this town. And if the people who'd come after me tonight were who I thought they were, running might not be enough anymore. And that's why, no matter how much I hated it, no matter how much I hated him, I was starting to realize Luke Bennett might be the only one who could help me survive what was coming next. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.